community building, and this whole gang of guys gets out of their car, stops, and the man thinks they're going to help me and get gas. I can tell the whole gang of guys gets out of the car and just lays it to him. Just whoops up on him, takes his wallet, beats him up and stabs him and leaves him for dead in the ditch. He's bleeding, he's swollen up because he's been kicked and whatever. He's been left in the ditch. And then all of a sudden, and then they take off. And all of a sudden you got the Archbishop of Morgantown was driving down the road in his limousine, and the limo driver sees this guy laying in the ditch, and he hollers back to the bishop, and he says, "Hey, there's this guy laying in the ditch. He looks like he needs help, and you know, we need to stop and help him." And the bishop says, "No, hey, wait a minute. No, I don't need to get involved in that. I'm too busy. I got places to go and people to see. I can't stop and do that. Just keep on going. I'm sure someone else will come." And then all of a sudden, you got this guy, this really good pastor of Hagen's church. He's driving down the road. He's driving down the road, and he sees the man. And he says to himself, "Man, boy, I'd like to help that guy, but I got to get to the Wednesday night Bible study. I got to teach on compassion. I don't have time to stop and check on this guy." And then this single mom, driving home after working her second job, on her way home to get her kids fed, to teach them on their homework, and to lay them to bed, only to get up early the next morning to drive them to school, to get to her first job, to get to her second job, and do it all over again. Because of circumstances outside of her control, here she is, a single mom. She sees this man on the side of the road. She stops her vehicle. She puts this man into her car. She takes him to Ruby Memorial Hospital, to the emergency room, and starts the registration process. She's right there with them all throughout the time. And once she registers, she realizes that the nurse notices he doesn't have any identification. He doesn't have any insurance. And there's just she could see it coming that he was not going to get the care that he needed. She said, "Listen, here's my information. Put it on my bill. Put it on my bill." Which one of the three treated that man like Jesus would? That's the story Jesus told, only in the words of his culture at his time. One more quick story in closing. There was a man in Hagen's who was very successful, and he had a very large home. 2 sons. One son helped him in the family farming, and the other just played his Xbox or video games and was very rebellious. Every time his dad asked him to do something, he had his own things to do. He didn't care. He was doing what he wanted to do. And he drank and he did drugs, and this rebellious son eventually turned 18. Shortly after the older son. He turned 18. And he turns to his father and he said, "I just want my trust fund. I want the fund that you've been creating for me and stuff. I want my inheritance. I want my trust fund because I want it and I want to leave. I'm tired of being under this roof. I'm going to leave." His dad, trusting God with all he had, and knowing that his son had to experience some life failures and successes, he had to go out there and experience life on his own before he learned anything. Dad couldn't make him do anything at this point. He, knowing, trusting God, gave the son the trust fund. And so he gave it to him, and he got onto a plane and he flew to Las Vegas. And in Las Vegas, he took that money he had and he rented a penthouse. And he spent all his money on the prostitutes and on the alcohol and the drugs and the gambling. And then the son ends up working for this flea bag restaurant to where he couldn't even afford to eat. And in the back of the restaurant was where they threw their garbage and their food. And he found himself picking through the dumpster just to get fed. because they wasn't willing to pay him enough, and there was nothing he can do. He knew he had to live somehow, but he was dumpster diving to get his food. And then the man comes to his senses. He says, listen, my dad's got people who works for him that are eating better and living better than I am. What have I done? What am I doing with my life? I need to get some rehab, some treatment. That's what I'm going to do. Now, I want to apologize to the Father, my Father. And I'm going to tell him this and tell him that. And so I'm going to get on the Greyhound bus. And so he gets on the Greyhound bus and he goes home. And he gets off the station that's nearest to his home. And he gets off and he's so ashamed that he don't even call his father. And he's walking down the road, you know, and he's rehearsing everything that he wants to tell his father. And all of a sudden he rounds the corner and he sees his home off the distance, and all of a sudden he sees the front door opening. And out comes his father. And mind you, if you was this rebellious boy, the things you would expect. The father opens up the door, and out he comes, he's a running. He's running straight for the son. And you can imagine what the son, oh, I'm going to get it. I have nothing to show for my trust fund. I am a failure. What am I going to tell him? All I can do is tell my father I'm sorry. And the father's running after him, and all of a sudden when he gets up close to him, he puts his arms around him and said, my son. Gives him a kiss on the cheek, brings him into the house and shows him his room that the father redone for him. It's totally new. And then he shows him the closet where his dad threw away all the old stuff and bought him new. And then he takes him to the garage and shows him the car that he just purchased for him. Not knowing he was coming home, but he purchased for him. But when he did. And then he has this big old party for the son, celebrating his return. Nothing was expected from that son that was received. And I'm telling you, there's people in this church, there's people that you experience, that you examine your lives, and you look at the Father and you say, I don't deserve nothing. I'm not getting up to go to church. I don't deserve to walk into that church. And yet God is waiting to show you unexpected things. An unexpected love that you don't deserve, and there's nothing you can do thereafter to deserve it. And He's going to give it to you. So stand with me if you will. All eyes closed and heads bowed. All eyes closed and heads bowed. Right there. What's the Spirit saying to you this morning through this message? He's the teacher, the ultimate teacher. Hopefully He's taught you something this morning. Come to the altar. Give it to Him.
He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed